The art of beginning again. Why your next chapter could be your best. Have you ever stared at the broken pieces of something you built, a career, a relationship, a dream, and wondered if it was even worth picking them up? I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Vie Engerman, whose work has literally transformed thousands of lives across continents. V isn't just another self help guru. She's a revolutionary thinker who has dedicated her life to helping people embrace the power of new beginnings. What makes her approach so remarkable is her uncanny ability to see the phoenix in the ashes before you even realize you're sitting in a fire. The truth is, we're all just one decision away from a completely different life. But that first step is absolutely terrifying. I remember sitting across from V during our interview, watching her eyes light up as she shared stories of transformation. The moment you decide to begin again, she said with such conviction that I felt it in my bones, is the moment you reclaim your power. Let's be honest, society has sold us this bizarre idea that life is linear, that we get one shot at success, one career path, one chance to get it right. What a convenient lie for a world that profits from our fear of starting over. But what if beginning again is actually the most natural thing in the world? Trees shed their leaves every autumn without apology. Snakes shed their skin without questioning their worth. The moon wanes to nothing before growing full again. Yet somehow we've convinced ourselves that transformation is failure rather than evolution. When V. Engerman speaks about beginning again, she's not talking about running away from problems. She's talking about the courage to say, this isn't working anymore, and I deserve better. Let me share something powerful I learned from our conversation. Starting over is not a sign of weakness. It's one of the most profound acts of self love you can perform. Think about it. How many of us stay in situations that no longer serve us simply because we've already invested so much time? The promotion that never comes, the relationship that drains rather than fills, the business that consumes our soul but no longer feeds our purpose. We stay because leaving feels like failure. But what if staying is the real failure? V introduced me to Vivi Mukhtar's story during our interview. After decades as an accounting expert, Vivi faced that terrifying question: is it too late to become something else? She had built her entire identity around spreadsheets and financial reports. Starting over in her 50s seemed not just daunting, but almost delusional. Who becomes a leader after a lifetime of following the rules? She asked herself every morning in the mirror. But that question haunted her until she couldn't ignore it anymore. So she did something radical. She went back to school while still working full time. She pursued leadership training despite the skeptical looks from younger classmates. She volunteered for projects outside her comfort zone when her colleagues were planning retirement. Was it easy? Absolutely not. There were nights she questioned everything. Mornings she woke up exhausted before her day even began. Moments when the voice in her head screamed, "You're making a fool of yourself." But today, Vivi Mukhtar is recognized as an industry leader who mentors young professionals. Her social media platforms showcase not just her expertise, but her journey of transformation. And here's the beautiful part: her impact is greater precisely because she didn't start at 22. Her wisdom carries the weight of experience, of knowing what it means to reinvent yourself when everyone tells you it's too late. As V. Engerman explained during our conversation, resilience isn't just about bouncing back to where you were, it's about bouncing forward to somewhere even better. This brings me to the second powerful truth. When you rise from setbacks or drastic changes, you often discover strengths and opportunities that weren't visible before. Consider Chichi Vivi's story, which V shared with such passion, it gave me goosebumps. As an African immigrant in Canada, Chichi worked punishing 12-hour shifts as a nurse. The physical toll was immense: aching feet, back pain, sleep deprivation. But the emotional exhaustion was worse. Every day felt like survival, not living. I came to this country for opportunity, she told V, but I found myself trapped in exhaustion. I was alive but not living. The turning point came when Chi Chi realized something profound. Her struggle wasn't just personal, it was communal. Thousands of other immigrant nurses were living the same reality, silently suffering behind brave smiles. So she made a decision that seemed ridiculous at the time. She started sharing her journey online. Between grueling shifts, she learned digital marketing during her precious few hours off. She created content specifically for healthcare professionals seeking escape routes from burnout. Was it terrifying? Yes. Did people tell her she was throwing away a stable career? Absolutely, Susan. Did her own family question her sanity? You bet they did. But today, Chi Chi has built a thriving online brand that supports African Canadian nurses transitioning out of shift work. She's achieved financial independence while creating a community where vulnerability is strength, not weakness. The irony: her greatest success came not from pushing through the pain, but from acknowledging it and choosing a different path. As V. Engerman so eloquently put it, sometimes the most beautiful things grow from the ashes of what we thought we wanted. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. That's nice for them, but my situation is different. I don't have resources, I don't have connections. I'm starting from zero. This brings me to one of the most powerful stories V shared during our interview. A Black entrepreneur who literally built $1 million business from nothing but insight and determination. This individual noticed the critical pain point in the insurance industry. Inefficient sourcing of car parts was costing companies millions. But instead of just complaining, they saw opportunity where others saw only problems. Despite having no capital, no industry connections, and facing skepticism due to their non traditional background, they started at the ground level. They focused obsessively on solving real problems that kept insurance executives awake at night. They networked strategically at industry events they could barely afford to attend. They innovated processes that the established players had overlooked because that's how we've always done it. Today, they've scaled from zero to millionaire status in an industry dominated by legacy firms. Not because they had advantages, but because they had insight. Not because the path was clear, but because they were willing to forge one. As V emphasized during our conversation, your starting point doesn't determine your destination. Your willingness to begin again does. This brings me to the third powerful truth. Your story has value at any stage. We live in a culture obsessed with prodigies: the 20-year-old billionaire, the overnight success, the child genius. We've been conditioned to believe that if you haven't made it by a certain age, you've missed your window. What a tragic lie. Your life experience, especially the messy parts, is precisely what gives your contribution depth. The setbacks, the false starts, the moments you thought would break you but somehow didn't. These aren't footnotes in your story, they're the most important chapters. When Vie Engerman speaks about beginning again, she emphasized that your unique perspective is your superpower, the very things that make you different. Your age, your background, your unconventional path are exactly what the world needs. Think about it. If everyone followed the same timeline, we'd have a world full of identical perspectives. How boring would that be? How limiting. The truth is, we need people who start over at 40, 50, 60. We need career changers who bring cross disciplinary thinking. We need late bloomers whose wisdom comes from lived experience rather than textbooks. As V so powerfully stated, the world doesn't need more perfect journeys, it needs more honest ones. Now, I want to be clear about something. Beginning again isn't about erasing your past, it's about integrating it into a new vision for your future. Everything you've learned, every skill you've developed, every relationship you've built, these aren't wasted because you're changing direction. They're the foundation upon which you'll build something even more authentic. This is what V. Engerman calls the alchemy of reinvention, turning what looks like lead into gold. So, where does this leave us? At a crossroads. We can continue to white knuckle our way through situations that no longer serve us, clinging to identities we've outgrown out of fear. Or we can embrace the art of beginning again. We can recognize that starting over isn't failure, it's courage. We can trust that resilience leads to greater opportunities. We can believe that our story has value regardless of when we decide to change the narrative. Today, I challenge you to look at your life with new eyes. What part of your story needs rewriting? What dream have you abandoned that still whispers to you in quiet moments? What version of yourself is waiting to emerge if only you give permission? The path of beginning again isn't easy. It requires facing uncertainty. It demands that you disappoint some people. It means exchanging the comfort of the known for the potential of the unknown. But on the other side of that fear is freedom. On the other side of that discomfort is growth. On the other side of that leap is the life you've always sensed was possible. As V. Engerman would say, the most dangerous risk of all is spending your life not doing what you want on the bet you can buy yourself the freedom to do it later. Later is not guaranteed. Now is all we have. So I leave you with this question. What would you begin again if you knew you couldn't fail? And more importantly, what's stopping you from beginning it anyway? Because the art of beginning again isn't just about starting over. It's about starting truer, starting braver, starting as the person you were always meant to become. And that journey can start right now with your very next decision.